Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. Welcome to a quick one-size-fits-all guide to everything that you need to know about installing OneVision, how to make use of the original game files, how to install the mod itself, how to make use of all of its many features, including changing visuals and game settings and all of that kind of stuff, as well as any and all technical issues that you may run into along the way. Obviously, you can't really cover 100% of everything, but that's what comments are for. This should cover most of what you need to know. Okay, first and foremost, in order to actually get started on the mod at all, we're going to need some original game files. Now, obviously, there's ways, but we're going to cover the sort of above-board means of getting a hold of these files right from the get-go. So, a lot of folks from back in the day still have their original PSP and their UMD disc with the PSP version of Tactics Ogre. You know what? Good for you. Your version of doing this is going to be extremely easy. Literally, all you have to do in that particular case is to go into your PSP, which my Vita is currently going to pretend to do, hit your select button on your home menu, because I assume, like a sensible person, you've actually modded your PSP. Same thing for your Vita. If you haven't, why? Anyway, it won't show it in this particular one, because obviously this is just the Vita pretending to be the thing, but in this menu here, you should have an additional option that says USB device, and to that, you can switch it over to the disk drive. You simply pop in the disk, and good to go. You can just basically drag and drop the ISO file from the drive directly to your PC. You're already good to go. Alright, now, for us folks that like the digital version, however, we're going to have to do a couple of extra steps. So, in this particular case, I have my old PSN purchase from back in the day. As of right now, in 2024, this is still available for purchase on the PlayStation Vita. It's no longer available for purchase on the PSP because that store is gone, and additionally doesn't seem to be available. It seems to be completely replaced by the Reborn version on like a PSN on most other devices. Theoretically, it should still be available for purchase on a PS3, but I don't have one to check. So either way, I'm not going to go out of my way to check if it still works on a PS3, but on a PS Vita, you can still buy the original game files for $10. Now, I should probably mention, for those that are wondering about the PSP method, I looked on eBay. You can lowball them for like $10 to $15. So, I'm sure you can find them. They actually had a little bit of a price spike several years ago, in which case it went up to like $50. But yeah, you can get them for pretty cheap these days. Either way, that's probably going to be the most straightforward way to do it. And as I mentioned earlier, obviously, there are ways. I'm not going to advertise those ways, but look, you're a sensible human being. I'm sure you can figure it out. So, these ways are going to be a little bit more complicated. So, right now, when it comes to getting it off of the Vita, when we go and we download it here, essentially we are going to have it on the device, but we won't be able to modify it directly. So, to that end, let's go ahead and take a look at where this file wound up. Okay, so if you are in your system menu, now, again, I assume that you've modified your Vita here, because again, it takes like a minute, and like it basically makes the device functional in the modern day, so again, just do it before your memory card explodes. But let's go ahead and talk about this here real quick. So once you've downloaded it, you go to PSP, or rather PSP-MU, PSP, go down to Game, and the file that we want in this case is going to be ULIS 100565. Now, well, I guess 10565 is just the way it should be. Now, I should mention, if you're in the European regions, you will have gotten a slightly different version. For the sake of convenience, let me just say that I'm going to be using the North American version here. There's functionally next to no difference between the North American and European versions, except for this code right here. In the OneVision files, that's actually where it has the number for the European one. I don't have that off the top of my head. Almost nobody seems to actually use that one. But just so you know, yes, there are technically two codes here. Additionally, for the folks asking about the Japanese version, there is technically, yes, a Japanese version. However, the Japanese version is like vastly different system-wise. Yes, that is a really weird thing. There's a lot of differences about the Japanese version. But basically the mod will not work on the Japanese version. I don't know why you have the Japanese version. I had to go out of my way to get a hold of a copy of it just to experience the weirdness firsthand. But yes, that version will not work with the mod. Anyway, so let's go ahead and assume that you've gone ahead and you see this file on your game here, and the insides look a little bit like this. Well, this does not look terribly usable. See, there's going to be 3 formats that the game will come in here. So this is the sort of PSN format, the eboot.pbp, the peanut butter format, if you will. Now, peanut butter is not going to be terribly useful for us for actually modding anything. We can't open it, we can't really use it, so we need to convert it into something. So to that end, there's actually a program. It's going to be the first link on the list, and that is going to be the ISO PBP converter. Essentially, all you have to do is drag that particular eboot file into the thing and tell it to convert it, and once all is said and done... Okay, I'm going to spare you watching a loading bar for like 15 minutes, but basically it spits out a file that looks like this. It just takes that eboot file and converts it into an ISO. So ISO is basically a digital disk of sorts. It's something that a lot of stuff uses. I'm assuming if you've modded anything to any extent, you know what an ISO is. It's a pretty standard format. For those that don't know, it's literally just like, it's a CD, but your computer understands it. Simple? Cool. So that's one of the 2 formats that we're going to be using here. The other format is just going to be your standard folder over here. So I've named mine Fried Chicken, but in the case of this folder here, it literally is just taking this and, well, giving it an open floor plan. It's just turning it, it's the same files, except it's just an openable folder. So let me explain the significance of this real quick. So that eboot format, it's not going to be useful for anything outside of original devices, so don't worry about it too much. ISO, like I said, is going to be the standard one, and then that open folder thing is something that's going to be very useful for folks that are going to be playing on phones or emulation devices. See, whenever this mod is updated, which happens pretty regularly, every month or 2, essentially what ends up happening is we get a new thing that looks like this, where they'll put out a new patch and they'll say, okay, look, here's the README file for the new stuff. Here's a PSP game folder. Here's the data install fix. At which point, you would just simply copy and paste it into the PSP game folder, and you're done. You're updated. If you're on a phone or if you're on an emulation device of any kind, literally you just take this folder. You drag and drop it over your existing PSP game folder. Done. The game is now modded. It's all done exactly as it should be. You just tell it to overwrite whatever you want it to overwrite, and you're all modded, ready to go. No additional steps. You're done. So for phones and for emulation devices, this is generally really dang easy to go ahead and get modded, right? Now, going back to the folks like myself that like to play on original hardware, we're going to have to take one extra step. So we have this ISO file, and this basically says, okay, I'm this disk, right? So you might have noticed in the files there, there was a particular program called UMDGen. So we're going to go ahead and open that up real quick. So it'll open up a file that looks a little bit like this. So effectively what we do is we go ahead and we take that ISO file that we just created. We just go ahead and drag and drop that thing over onto the menu for UMDGen. So we just go ahead and drop that sucker in there. There we go. So with that all dropped in, this will now have everything opened up and ready to go. You might notice it makes fun PSP sounds when you go and click on stuff. Now, that said, we want to go in and also install the patch, right? So we would essentially take that same file that we were using earlier. So let's say we take a look at, we go into PSP game, we take the icon folder, and we go ahead and drop it in here. And it asks us, do you want to replace the icon? Yes. So that would just simply replace this icon up here. And we have another folder that's a US directory, so we go ahead and move that over, and we tell it yes to all. And that's going to go ahead and replace everything, and now it's done. So, as I mentioned, there's essentially 2 different steps that you can do here. Let's actually take one step back here real quick, that if you want to have that folder that I was talking about earlier, you simply select Extract Image, and you tell it where to save that folder. You now have a folder with everything ready to go for your phone or emulation device. But for the folks that are looking to play it on original hardware, you go up here, you go to Save As, and then you save it as uncompressed. Now, Currently, I am making this video off of a Steam Deck, which doesn't play terribly nice with this thing. So, like, for example, if I tried to save the ISO, it wouldn't be terribly happy with that. But if I told it to extract everything and just make the folder, it'll work just fine. It's just a weird little quirk of Linux, which I'm assuming most of y'all probably won't be on. Anyway, so yeah, just to reiterate, if you are on phone or emulation device, extract image, and then essentially just tell your PPSSPP emulator to read that folder. Just put it wherever you have the rest of your games, and it's all good to go. You don't need to do anything else. It'll give you a little warning when you go to launch it that says, oh man, I don't know about this, I can't properly read this. It's lying to you. It can read it just fine. I don't know why that warning's there. Or again, if you are on original hardware, just go down to Save As and save as uncompressed. And then you just simply put that into your PSP. So let me go ahead and show you where that goes. Okay, hopefully I remember to edit this in for earlier, but I wanted to talk about the data install fix real quick. So essentially, this should be the final step if you are going and creating your mod file here. Let me just go ahead and say, in most cases, you probably don't need this. This is literally just here because I'm pretty sure they got sick of hearing people going and reporting the same old thing over and over, which is the taco problem. If you've ever heard somebody joke about the sex taco, it's because it's a it's a file called the EXTACO, in which if you've installed the game before, like if you're on PPSSPP, or frankly if you're just in the game in general, you'll notice in the start menu there, there's actually an option to install the game. Now, there is absolutely no reason to install the game, regardless of what you're running it on. So back in the day, presumably this was a way to either have the option to. I kind of got cut off there. But back in the day, this was presumably an option to allow you to basically move the disc version onto your PSP. Like, let's say if something was happening to your disc, or to very, 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 very extraordinarily slightly change your load times, specifically on an original model PSP. Now, I have fixed a hell of a lot of PSPs, Vitas, and other handhelds in my time, and I can tell you that I typically always test them with Tactics Ogre, and it made basically no difference. Like, some shop menus had a split second of a difference, but we're talking about a case where it basically more or less doubles your install size on the device on a handheld that basically had no install size to begin with. Like the PSP memory chip that I had for the longest time was a grand total of 4 gigs. So to go and double the size of the game, basically just, well, I guess technically not completely double. It's just doubling it before DLC, I think. So it ends up going from like 1.5 gigs up to like 2.5 gigs, give or take. But either way, completely not worth it. But what it does is create a file called the EXTACO, which is your install file. And if it exists, it causes your game to try to load the original game files on top of the OneVision game files, and then you wind up with bizarre things like somebody trying to kill somebody with a fish in the intro, and then the game crashes. It's really bizarre. So either way, you have 2 fixes. Either, once you're done with your kind of game install, if for some reason you're too stubborn to go just delete the EXTACO file, you just put the data install fix on there and just overwrite it. Just basically throw it on top of your mod files and you're good to go. You never have to touch it again. If for some reason you want to have that file there, honestly, truth be told, the easiest answer has always been just go into your save data, find the Tactics Ogre EXTACO file, delete it. That's it. Problem solved. Nothing else needed. But yeah, the data install fix just basically causes it to ignore that particular issue in the weird chance that somebody went and, it had hit the install button at some point and then just was too lazy to go delete that file. You might say, wow, nobody's going to be that lazy, but you would be shocked how often that was coming up until that data install fix file was added to there. So, again, you do you, whichever one you prefer. If you need a far higher, bigger, file size for absolutely no benefit whatsoever, and simply refuse to reduce the file size by just not doing this in the first place, just throw the data install fix on top of your existing file. and never touch it again, or just simply never touch this button, or if you did, just go delete the EXTACO file. Okay? Alright, awesome, fantastic, good talk, let's move on. Okay, so this will apply to both PSP and Vita players, but effectively what you want to do is you go to either your PSP main directory, or if you're on a PS Vita, you go to PSP EMU, which is, again, basically the PSP. Now, if you have a ISO folder here, good, click on it, put the file right here. This is exactly where it goes, name it whatever the hell you want, it goes right here. If you happen to not have an ISO file in this particular location, just make a folder called ISO. The slash, as far as I'm aware, is not necessary on the Vita here. Literally just call it ISO. It's fine. But yeah, and then you just drop the folder in there, and that's it. Your PSP will be able to read it right away. Your Vita will be able to read it right away as long as you are running Adrenaline, which is basically the thing that puts it into PSP mode. Now, let's take it one step further and say we wanted to play it on a Vita here, but we also wanted to have it, have its own little bubble here. You want it to look pretty with the rest of your games, so what gives? So, all you would need to do for this one, this is something you can just go and Google. I'm not going to go and go out of my way for extra links on this one. Look up Adrenaline Bubbles Manager, and then you just click on this thing, you select the thing that you want to have made into a bubble, and yeah, it'll load up everything that's on your PSP. So we go down to Tactics Ogre, let's see, this is the original one, I have the Japanese one in here somewhere, and then we go to find One Vision, which you'll notice uses the proper icon as you'd expect, and then you just rename it to whatever you'd like. You can change the colors if you'd like, just do all the settings to whatever your preference, and then, it'll just launch like normal. So I should probably mention that on emulation devices here, we will be mentioning cheats a decent bit. So normally when you're playing a game with cheats, normally the thought typically delves into the darker side of things of, oh no, you're just trying to make the game easy or something, but the cheats menu is actually used to unlock a lot of features for this mod here, essentially giving it quality of life features that even Reborn didn't do in a lot of cases. So I'm going to go ahead and start off showing this initially on the Vita here, because it's already the thing on my screen, and then we're going to transition over to PPSSPP to show you what it looks like there. So, and I probably should also mention that, yes, at the moment, we haven't gone ahead and talked about going into the HD mod yet. Don't worry, we're going to cover it in just a minute. Anyway, so let's go ahead and take a look at the kinds of stuff that we have here. So we have the low-level class EXP scaling fix. It's essentially a system thing that the game is kind of hard-coded not to do, at least as of so far. But this basically fixes everything so that your classes are generally going to level a lot more evenly across the board. So you shouldn't see as big of a level disparity between your favorite units. We have things like recruits being able to keep all of their skills, because by default, according to the system, they can only keep their top 4, which is extremely frustrating. Same thing for making sure that recruits will keep any unique equipment. If you would like to make sure that they do, you can get rid of boss immunities, you can scavenge skills from anyone. Like, basically, you can do all kinds of stuff that would normally be impossible. Even things like, for example, changing any character into any job, because one of the features that One Vision adds is unique sprites for generic units. So, for example, say you wanted to have a team of generic paladins or something, they would have a sprite for that, meaning that it wouldn't crash the game when you tried to use this. Say you wanted to, use actual cheat functions like being able to control all units or turn all of your units permanently into AI or something with no option to change them back. All of these different options are here. But one thing I should mention that remains true, actually right here, enemy pickups go to player. This is one that a lot of people consider mandatory. But one thing that I should mention that is actually true of not only the emulator but also original hardware. I should probably mention that this menu is handled by CW Cheat. That's actually something that you can just go ahead and Google. Again, CW Cheat. It's literally just a plugin thing you throw into your PSP and or Vita in the exact same location. It just goes into SE plugins. There's some like slight quirks as far as its exact thing, but again, just look that one up. I'm assuming most folks will not be playing on original hardware. I just wanted to make the point that literally all of its functions, except for the HD mod, work on everything. Anyways, point being, all of these cheats are going to work just fine, you know, on original hardware, original PSP, PS Vita, all of that kind of thing. But I'm assuming most folks are going to be playing on emulator, so let's move over to PPSSPP real quick and discuss that. Okay, so we're going to go into kind of more advanced stuff as far as kind of different cheats and quality of life features and stuff like that go. But one important detail I want to mention before I forget here is the fact that we have to consider that cheats are basically saved in RAM. So more or less what this means is that even if you turn a cheat off, in a lot of cases, unless it's something immediate, it won't be completely gone. It'll still be there in some capacity. So like, for example, if you tell it to unlock all items and then you just simply reload your save, the game has not shut off. So for example, if I were right here to take a look at my cheats, I would see that, okay, I don't have a lot of the cheats activated. I literally have everything disabled. However, if I were to go into my menu, I'd see that, oh no, you know, everyone is still potentially recolored in whatever funny ways I decided to recolor them. So effectively what you do in that situation is just go back to the menu and restart. So just bear in mind that that is a thing, that if you find yourself in a position that you turned on a bunch of things that you didn't mean to turn on, you do want to quit out and then hard load a save. So if you're using save states, it will continue keeping those saves in there. And additionally, while this should be common knowledge for anyone that plays on save states on emulator for an extended period of time, please remember to hard save your game every now and then, because if you leave it simply running on RAM, constantly like building up random trash data in the background at all times, you will eventually get bizarre glitches. This is basically true of anything being emulated, but either way, especially true here, where, you know, if you end up going and having several kind of competing bits of data that are trying to figure out what the hell's going on, then you're going to have a problem. That being said, if you activate something and you haven't activated a cheat prior to that, then you will be able to see those effects. So, for example, you saw earlier that we have a red speckled canopus raptor over here. We'll just go ahead and activate that real quick, and we'll notice that since we haven't loaded, it currently has not had a reason to load that data. So instead, we're going to go ahead and load up the save, and it will properly go and reload his visuals to show us that, yes, he is now a red speckled canopus raptor with bizarre blue pants, but we're not going to judge him for that. Anyway, so as far as these cheats are concerned, let's go ahead and take a look here. Alrighty, so at this point we've got our quality of life features more or less figured out. We'll get into a kind of bigger section over all of that in just a moment. But next, I wanted to actually cover the HD mod. So, the HD mod will only work on the PPSSPP emulator. Effectively, what it is that it's kind of glossing over the original game with textures, some of which are from Reborn, some of which are custom things put together. I think it was Sir Bags that did the text work to basically make all the text sharper. And then Rakes did the work on the icons and such, so he's the One Vision author. So essentially you're going to have different visuals for a lot of things. Anyways, that being said, let's go ahead and take a quick little peek here at what's available on their site, because this may confuse some folks. So you've actually got two different versions of the download here. Where you've got the main download, and you've got the KTX2 version, which sounds very fancy and robotic, but basically it's just the smaller version. You got the biggie version and you got the smallie version. So big version is typically going to be for folks that are on PC and or possibly Steam Deck, depending on kind of what you prefer there. Generally, it's going to look slightly crisper than the other versions, but it will come with a bigger file size. Remember that in PPSSPP's case, it's again basically replacing textures on the fly with these texture packs. So if you don't have a sufficiently fast enough device, for most situations, this kind of more compressed version is probably going to be the one that you want to use. So anyone that's on a Retroid or a phone or something like that should use the compressed version. They're basically going to be the same. But yeah, for folks on PC, typically you'll want to use this upper link, and again, Most other things, you'll want this lower link. For folks that are on PSP or Vita, we do not get to use this, so just skip this section, basically. In order to activate it, what you need is to take those files that you downloaded and then go to your PPSSPP install file. So this is probably going to be under your apps on your phone. Every phone's going to be a little bit different, but just, search PPSSPP. It kind of sticks out. And you'll find a PSP file right underneath. From there, you go ahead and put a folder called Textures, which it tells you to do in the mod install instructions as well. And then you make a folder that says ULUS 100565, and or if you're using the European version, then ULUS 10 or 11500, I think, something like that. Let's double check here real quick. No. ULES 01500. That's the European version. My bad. No one uses the European version. It doesn't ever come up. Anyway, so when you have this mod file in there, you'll notice it actually comes with a lot of extra options. One thing that I should point out for folks that saw the previous video on this, the text stuff did get fixed across all devices, so all devices are able to use this properly at this point. Now, before we start messing with what's in this folder, we should take a quick little peek over at PPSSPP to make sure that we have our settings right. So let me go ahead and hop over there. As it says in the instructions for this thing, there's a few steps. So first of all, set the emulator to a rendering resolution of a multiple of 4. So in this case, I'm just going to leave it at 4 times PSP, but you can kind of put it up to whatever the hell you want. Up to 8 times if you're on a 4K monitor, apparently. Honestly, that seems a bit overkill, but hey, whatever, you do you. In this case, we'll have 4 times PSP resolution, and then we'll go down to the first thing that's actually going to be a little hard to find for some here, because it specifically mentions to actually, here. Sorry, I tried to skip a step there. First things first, we go to Tools, we go over to DevTools, and we make sure that Replace Textures is activated. From there, we go over to our graphics settings, and it'll say that we need to make sure to set the post-processing shaders to off, which we've basically already done. And additionally, we want to make sure to set texture filtering to nearest and screen scaling filter to linear. Now, the texture filtering bit is pretty easy. We go down to the bottom here and we find our texture filtering and we set that to nearest, but you might go through this menu multiple times and think, oh shoot, where on earth is the screen scaling filter? For some reason, as of the last few updates, it's under Display Layout and Effects, and that's going to be up here. So it's no longer in the same menu, it's over here. I'm guessing because people were mixing those up and they just wanted to stick them in totally different menus. Honestly, it just feels like they should shorten it into something else so that they aren't, confusing. So again, screen scaling filter in this separate menu that it's got here is linear, and the other one is nearest. Basically, you'll know if you got this wrong if you're getting all kinds of bizarro visual glitches as soon as you let it run. So don't worry, it'll let you know right away. Okay, next thing to actually mention as far as PSPP settings while we're here. Speed hacks. Don't use those. This game uses a lot of visual tricks to even exist in the first place. So for example, when you're looking at maps, you're not looking at a 3D space, you're basically looking at a collection of like tiny little slides of paper that are moving around to kind of determine where stuff is, with like a layer of weather effects on top, with a layer of UI elements on top, but like some UI elements are behind other UI elements. You've got the sprites that are technically different from everything else. You've got the backgrounds that are also kind of their own thing. Like the entire thing is a bizarro illusion. Like there was a picture that I think it was Gibbed that put out over on the One Vision Discord a while ago that was trying to visually show what this all looked like. I'll see if I can find it and edit it in. Yeah, it just does all kinds of craziness. So if at any point stuff starts glitching out or stuff looks different from other stuff, just take a moment to appreciate the work that they did for Tactics Ogre Reborn to make it cohesive. Because I guarantee you that probably took a lot of trial and error. So anyways, let's go ahead and go back to those Back to the stuff for the HD mod real quick. Okay, so the reason that we're actually back in the folders for the HD mod here is that you actually have alternate stuff if you would prefer to use it. So for example, since we're playing One Vision, you might notice that there's a folder up here called Artwork Alternates. And if you go in here, you'll see that there's a folder for One Vision Recolors, which has things like giving Donato a black hat, giving Deneb her black hat, giving Lance his gold armor, going for Green Eye and Red Eye, Obda and Berta, as well as a red undershirt for Gildas, just basically making them a bit more distinct in their particular looks. Or if, for example, you wanted to have Denim look like his SNES version, as well as a bunch of kind of work-in-progress SNES sprites for all kinds of different things, if you would prefer. But either way, it's basically still a work in progress. That stuff isn't really done as of yet, so use that as you will. Just know that it's there for you to fiddle around with if you want it. Okay. Additionally, it's worth noting that it's not just these ones, but there's actually a few different differences. But actually, if you go into the UI over here, so this would be back in the main menu here, so ULUS 10.0.565. And then, I don't know why I always want to call it 10.0.565. It's adding an extra 0. It's just 10.565. Thanks, brain. Anyways, under the UI, you actually have alternate versions for stuff here as well, like March of the Black Queen style tarot cards, older versions of status effects if you would prefer them, as well as alternate kind of fonts and things like that if you would prefer, as well as different versions of health bars if you would prefer. So bear in mind that, again, there's going to be these different things to go and play around with if you'd like. You know, there's a lot of little extra bits and pieces here for those that want it. Okay, so now let's get back to those cheats as well as the One Vision resource. Okie dokie. So, one of the links that you'll find in the description here is going to be to the incredible One Vision resource. Now, basically, if you have any question over what a weapon does, what a piece of armor does, where to find something, it will basically tell you where to find everything. So if you wanted, like, let's say the Veinatea's Talons, and you see, oh, it'll give you the ability to make somebody fly, and it's dropped by, you know, Veinatea over here. Essentially, it'll tell you where something is, it'll tell you exactly how long its debuffs last for, its exact numbers, down to the nitty-gritty here, what kind of passives it has, exact stats and scalings and whatever else. So, generally speaking, this is going to be where you go to find pretty much anything. Like, you know, you were curious about where to find the main gauche. You want to have a parrying dagger. And so you go over here, you see, oh, look, it'll give you parry +2. It's available for any units level 25 and higher. You know, it can do a shackle for 4 turns. It's got these kinds of bonuses for actually stabbing something. I think it's actually technically defensive bonuses in this case. And it's available from Shieldcraft. So you would have to essentially get a hold of Shieldcraft. You see what classes have it. Again, this is a very, very thorough resource for everything. It's one hell of a beautiful website. Like, it's just good stuff. Again, even down to up-to-date abilities and everything else. I stopped updating my website a good while ago. And frankly, I don't even mind, just because it's a case where I never have a reason to update my website again because the One Vision resource exists, like down to telling you exactly where to get a hold of every unit type and what have you. It's just great stuff. Hell, like, I don't know how many of y'all were there back in the old guide days, but like back when we used to actually order paper guides for things and whatnot. But like seeing things like this just honestly bring me back to that feeling of going and flipping through an old paper guide, of seeing all these interesting things I didn't know about. And I love the fact that this whole thing is actually modeled, seemingly modeled, down to using seemingly the exact same text as the official Tactics Ogre guide that came out. So you gotta love that. Like, I compared it with my paper version, and it does seem to be the same, so that just puts a smile on my face. So yeah, and this includes, for example, if somebody has a unique class, like, for example, Elrig, who previously was just a rando cleric, you know, kind of backs up his backstory here a little bit with his new class, but I'm not going to tell you more about that. That's just it's just fun to note that it's there. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about cheats real quick. So cheats, you might notice, are over here under CWC codes. So If we go down over here, we'll see that if, for example, you wanted to modify any particular named unit in the game, you would have the option to do so right there, as well as giving them a different sprite, giving them different sprite colors, as well as giving you a few warnings over what kind of things can potentially happen. So, for example, they specifically warn you not to use monster sprites for humanoids, that they'll crash the game if you swing a weapon. This is really funny for a lot of scenes, by the way. So, like, for example, if you try to specifically swing a weapon as a monster, that's an issue. But if you give them the monster class change list, they will, for all intents and purposes, be that monster. But it has no walking animations for them in cutscenes, so they'll just be this bizarre, glitchy mess of random sprites. It's hilarious. But yeah, as they mention here, they actually have additional codes that will show up for Denim, Cashua, and Vice due to being available in the post-game. As it mentions for these colors, sometimes they will not be exactly as they're mentioned here because, sometimes just different stuff was saved in that slot. And additionally, if you wanted to have different portraits, then, you have that option here to switch between different things. Like, for example, a lot of folks were using the old Silver Sarah look for a decently long time, since Sarah does have a unique look this time around, where she's meant to look a bit like Orson from Night of Lotus, but she previously was this kind of silver version that a lot of folks liked. Anyway, additionally, you can also change somebody to, for example, be allowed to use different types of classes, and this is essentially where you can potentially just allow somebody to have unique classes. You can have somebody, like if you ever specifically said like, oh, I always felt like, let's say, you felt like Saria should have access to a paladin or something, you might switch over to Hamilton's thing. Or let's say you wanted to turn, let's say, Rudlum into a bard or something, you might switch him over to a Pumpkinhead. But either way, you have, again, the person who you're modifying, you have the sprite that they're walking with, the colors that they're rocking, the kind of portrait that they'll use, as well as their class set that they can use. And additionally, you can go ahead and actually change this for any of your generic units as well, where it mentions specifically right here, there's a code to use that says MP shows real order, where once activated, it will essentially show... it'll essentially show the number that unit is in the roster in the actual game itself. So let's go ahead and show how that works real quick. So what I've done is I've activated two different cheats here, one for MP shows real order and another for TP shows loyalty, just to kind of show how these work real quick. So for example, if we go over here, we see that Mr.Bran over here is at 99 loyalty and his roster number is actually 4. So if we wanted to, let's say, change him to somebody else, we would go over here and let's say we switch their roster number to 4, and let's see. So no special character things. So for example, one of the things that you can do here is, like, let's say we wanted to turn a random unit into Leonor, right? So we have our soldier guy that's at slot number 4, and we put in a thing here that says change class unit 4 to Leonor. Okay, so we'll go ahead and copy that real quick. And then up here, we'll go ahead and say that Leonor, for some reason, looks like Andoris. He'll use Elrig's class change set. He'll go ahead and be outlaw coloring, and he'll have the portrait of Vice's dad. So we'll go ahead and copy these two codes and activate them real quick. Now, you might be wondering, what do you mean activate them? We haven't figured out a place to actually put them in yet. What are you talking about? So what we would do is we would go over here to cheats. Now, if you go into your game settings, there's an option to activate cheats, but we click on cheats and we go to edit cheat file. So in this case, it'll open up a little text thingy, and all we do is we just go ahead and pop these in wherever we'd like. So I'm going to make a little bit of a space right at the very top. I'm going to pop in that first code to change the unit into Leonor, and then I'm going to go ahead and use a second thing to go ahead and modify him so that he is currently something different. Again, just reread the instructions on there if you'd like to see it in action, but now that we've gone ahead and edited that file, we'll see that we can change Unit 4 to Leonor, template change for Leonor. We can rename these as we'd like, and we'll go ahead and go back, and we'll see that he temporarily disappeared. So if we want his stuff to show up, we can reload the thing, or we can simply go and switch him over to another class. So I don't have the Sacred Fist on hand, but we'll just go ahead and switch him over to the Ninja here real quick, just to make it happen. And as we see, we now have a guy that is effectively Leonor, except he's also some dude named Bran that looks like Vice's dad, that is also basically Andoris, but he's looking like a way cooler version. He kind of looks like Blade or something. So, either way, that kind of works out in a bizarrely interesting manner, and if we had any Sacred Fist class marks, I would be able to switch him over to it. Now, that said, it's also worth noting that you can change a lot of other things as well. So, for example, say you wanted to go and power level a particular class to a particular level just to go ahead and skip that whole thing. Say you wanted to start the game with everybody at max level with the AI, having access to any and all equipment, you can go ahead and do that. You can basically play unleveled mode, courtesy of this thing right here. So let's say, we pick any class whatsoever. Let's say we have Vartans, we set them to level 50. And then that'll just go ahead and set them to 50. And you can do this for every single class and just, again, start off at max level and never have to worry about leveling a single time. And as it mentions here, so it should be turned off immediately after use. Because effectively what this is doing is it's actually setting the class to that particular level. I believe in this particular instance, it's actually giving you the experience as well, but any experience that you get will effectively go nowhere if it's still activated. So if you're doing anything other than max level, just make sure to turn it off after you activate it, so that it basically doesn't turn off experience, more or less, since that, believe it or not, levels and experience are actually two completely separate meters, and you can have a case where you simply are just a level far above where your experience actually allows, and it has to take a while to catch up. It's just, don't worry about it. Anyway, next up, though, if you, for example, also wanted to, let's say, have a character renamed, or if you wanted to teach them particular spells, those options are here as well. So if you wanted to just select all of these and have everybody learn every spell at once, and unlock every class at once, and what have you, that's something you absolutely can do. Just, again, courtesy of this whole thing here. And effectively, the reason that you do this is more or less for testing and such, so just either way, it still prevents, it still will be limited to whatever class they have, but this essentially allows for kind of power leveling, or not necessarily power leveling, but essentially kind of force equipping spells on people if, for example, you want to do AI fights or something like that. So I know personally, when it comes to doing the AI fights, I want to bring back that concept of doing a sort of AI tournament kind of thing with all of this. It's part of the reason that I'm hoping to get more folks into One Vision right now, because we still have multiplayer mode on One Vision. There's an opportunity for this, dang it, we can make it work. So anyways, to that end, yeah, this will just allow you to just give everybody these spells instead of having to go through each individual one and learn them. And then, obviously, we have the one that we already showed here, which was the experience scaling fix. So this is basically just a thing that makes everybody level just generally more smoothly and whatnot. So that's about that. And additionally, as we saw earlier, there's quite a few other cheats. So I'll also include a list of just whatever I've got here. It does duplicate some of them. It's a pretty messy list, to be completely honest. Some of the codes on here don't work because it was just random, like, quick and dirty stuff. I was hoping that somebody could just quickly throw my way to test something, and then they didn't work, and I was just lazy to remove them off the list over the years. But there's a lot of potentially useful stuff on here, as well as some interesting modes for you to try out. Like, for example, if you ever wanted to do a full class randomizer, hire more classes from shop allows you to effectively have randomized classes that will show up at the shop, including things like Angel Knights. If you wanted to recruit units with more SP out of the gate, that's a pretty useful thing right there. You have AI commands having an on and off. If, for example, you want to force the friendly AIs to go back to being AIs rather than being on your control, and or if you wanted to do an AI only run or something. You got a apparently improved somehow version of change any character into any job. Honestly, I don't know what the difference was. I think this one might be, I think it might actually allow for things like Knight Commanders and whatnot without crashing the game. I'm not 100% certain. is showing all skills at once rather than what's nearby your level. That's just kind of a general quality of life thing if you want it. It's a bit more messy, but it's a bit potentially more convenient. A thing here to allow pumpkin heads to be witches, allows gremlins to be buccaneers or fairies to be songstresses. If you wanted immediate access to necromancers or songstresses and such. If you wanted to do what's his face? I'm forgetting his name right now, but there's a guy that's essentially trying to do an ultra masochist mode right now. That's effectively that enemies have access to all equipment and also have maxed out health and stuff like that. So, in this case, these were some of the codes that he put out there for that one, where they'll have maximum HP at all times, that enemies have access to all gear, so they're not like logically limited to their spawns and things, or for example, specifically removing uniques. I know that there was an earlier version of this that just basically gave every enemy a fire crest, which was ridiculous. But I'm sure that's somewhere in this list. If you want to just instantly max loyalty, if you want to make sure that all enemies always drop all equipment at all times, or just drop their full loot table at the same time, or just take infinite actions to go and test something. This one is especially useful for testing things like Prevailing Element, which I think we can safely confirm is just kind of mechanically fucked. But anyway, moving on. It's funny, we had a whole conversation the other day. It was like Rakes was testing stuff, Recession was testing stuff, I was testing stuff, and like ultimately it just turned out that basically only Divine works right across all versions of Tactics Ogre. This game is weird, okay? It's a strange game, but there's a pretty solid chance that the current insane scaling for healing is probably gonna just get taken out and replaced with something more sensible. But in general, like, you have options on options on options here, so just bear in mind that those are there. Yeah, that's kind of about that. So that should be everything that you need to know. So as far as the kind of pros and cons of what devices you should actually play this on, I mean, basically, it's up to you, realistically, whatever's most convenient. Most folks find it most convenient to play on an Android phone. For folks that are on iOS, I'm sure you'll get PPSSPP down the line. But a quick little note that I should mention here is that when it comes to the HD pack here, I know personally on my phone it loads instantly and doesn't have any issues, but on Steam Deck, I constantly have this thing where it takes a little bit of a second to kind of bring stuff up, and I'm sure you'll notice that every now and then. Presumably that's some kind of Linux thing. Honestly, I have no freaking idea. But if you are in a situation where, for example, you specifically want to use it on Steam Deck, or your phone is having that issue with stuff popping in, and you're already using the lower version of it, one thing that you can do is just like, whenever you pull up your character sheet the first time you launch the game, just either hold L and R and you'll quickly kind of scroll through everything. It'll preload just about everything for you, and typically will keep everything on hand. So you'll generally see it a bit less when that happens. And yeah, in general, it's usually not much of an issue. I haven't seen too many folks complaining about it, but I know it's something that I personally have run into, so, your mileage may vary there. Let's see, if you're running into issues specifically with weather, let's go ahead and talk about settings here real quick. So, occasionally with weather, I've seen some benefits using skip GPU readbacks for dealing with weather. I wouldn't recommend it, though, because it does introduce a lot of visual glitches. But just so you know, it might be what you need to make it work on a lower-end phone. Additionally, as far as upscaling goes, if you're noticing that some things seem out of whack, turn on upscaling and all of that kind of thing. I don't know if deposturizing actually helps, but it seems to. I'm assuming it does, so either way, it probably does something maybe. I don't know. I'm not very good at these settings. But either way, as far as upscaling, I know that this worked pretty well for me, but again, you do you. Like, if I were to turn this off right here, you'll notice a few things look different, like the sprites look a little bit different. They look a little bit more out of place, but either way, on phones, you probably won't notice upscaling that much. It's really just on bigger screens that you'll really actually notice some of this stuff. Generally, everything is still going to be pretty distinctive when you're going and looking at it, so, do as you will. Okay, let's see, what else? If you're experiencing any crashes, that's probably a good sign that something has gone wrong. Generally speaking, you can expect not only the original PSP version, but this version as well, to be extraordinarily stable, just pretty much for every situation. I mean, I've gone through literal entire playthroughs going into post-game on the PSP and Vita versions without a single crash or issue whatsoever. It's, again, an extremely stable game, generally speaking, and the mod is no different. So typically, if you experience a crash of any kind, go ahead and report it if you can recreate it. If you can't recreate it, it was probably an emulator bug. If you can recreate it, it's more than likely a asset that's missing, but given how often this mod is tested, typically those don't tend to last for more than like a week. And frankly, the last time I remember a thing like that happening was like 4 or 5-ish years ago, maybe. So typically, again, that does not happen. Okay, so that's more or less kind of about that. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I feel like we've mostly covered everything that you can run into. We covered the data install thing. We covered what devices it can run on. For phones and emulator devices, again, remember, just use the folder method. You can use the ISO method as well. There's just not much of a point. Like, especially if you're on a PC, like I have a very old laptop that I keep around just specifically to have a PC. Literally all I did was essentially extract my original game files on there, made that ISO file, extracted it into a folder, put it on my phone. Every time there's an update, I just drag and drop it in there and it's good to go. So there's like literally the update process is doable from your phone or Steam Deck, and or probably Retroid 2, I would assume. It's just original hardware that takes that extra step of specifically packing it into an uncompressed ISO file and then just putting it into its usual slot. So yeah, that's kind of about that, I think. So let me know if there's any questions. Hopefully the puppy in the background isn't being too loud. His brothers had to go to the vet today, so he's like, "Where the hell's everybody? I need my other puppy dudes." So time to go back and give him some more pets because he's apparently up from his nap. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. You know, everything's fair game. The One Vision community is extremely helpful for fixing things. So, you know, drop on by. All right, y'all take care. I'll see you in the next one.